And welcome back. Or if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are going to move on now, as in the description, to 2022's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Is that upside down? Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. The whole damn thing was upside down. Yes. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was released in 2022, directed by Halina Reijn, written by DeLappe, and stars Amandla Stenberg, Maria Bakalova, and Rachel Sennott. And yeah, let's get into this. Now, I'll say right up front that this wasn't a mistake buy. As you see, I have it. I own it. I paid for it. I bought it. But this is not very high rated. It's 5.9, possibly touching a 6. There was some good stuff in it that I liked, but there was a lot of problems, and we'll talk about those. So, this movie opens with introduction to Sophie and B. Sophie is a gay girl, has a new girlfriend named B. She's going to take her to a party at her friend Gordon's house. So we are introduced when they get there to Emma and Jordan and Greg and Alice and David and Max. And this is our group. Now, they're going there for a hurricane party. There's a hurricane that's rolling through, and they are going to have a hurricane party. I am from Northwest Florida. They're very common here in Florida, so I kind of know what they're talking about. Why people want to gather together and celebrate their death when the roof caves in on them, I don't really know, but it is just something that people do. So, the hurricane begins, and Jordan warns B. Now, Jordan is obviously a person. These are all, everybody knows everybody except for B. They've all been friends for a very long time. And they've had, I guess, knowledge and relationships and all kind of things with each other. Jordan is another girl who warns B to be careful around Sophie, about Sophie. So what's that all about? I don't know. So we see them, and I wrote, there's going to be weird things in my notes. I wrote, David is super ugly to me. He is, and we're going to talk about all that. There are no pretty people in this film. They're all ugly. Yep. I did write that, and I meant that. So, they all dance and they party and they get to know each other. The party's kind of begun, and then Sophie wants to play Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Is that a real game? Or was it just made up for this movie? I don't know. Do y'all people play Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? Didn't it actually? It didn't even seem like a really fun movie, a game. I guess it could be if you look at the principles of it. I don't know. But I don't know. Is it a real game or not? Let me know if you know. But, so they're all drinking, doing coke, except for Sophie, who is like not. We start to learn that this whole bunch is a bunch of, like, rich kids. David's house is extremely, yeah, it was a party at David's house, not Jordan. Jordan is that other girl who has like a forest jungle underneath her armpits. We'll talk about that too. But, so they're starting playing this game. You can tell there's a lot of tension between all of them. As a matter of fact, David sort of makes it clear that Sophie wasn't supposed to come. She's obviously been off on rehab. She's out of rehab. We find out later that she had actually told on David to his parents to get him put in rehab. So there is already, a little bit of tension between them all. And then Greg is dead on the floor. He's the body. And they start naming off suspects. I would have to watch it again to find out exactly how this game works, but they start naming off the subjects when B kind of realizes that Greg is what she thinks is really dead. And so they kind of all start freaking out. David, however, walks up and taps him in the testicles. And yeah, you're not going to play pretend during that. So he gets up, and he wasn't really dead at all. So um, once that has occurred, David, he gets into a fight with Emma, I believe, who is his girlfriend, and he storms out, and Greg and David kind of get into a fight. Greg, he says he's going to bed. That's when David gets into a fight with Emma, and then he goes out. It's all ridiculous, but that behavior. But so you can tell there's a lot of tension between all of them. Then the lights go out, and because David had walked out and Gray had went to bed, they try to figure out how to get the lights back on. Do you know where the generator is? Stuff like that. Which is probably something you would suspect during a hurricane. There's probably a probability that your lights are going out. I don't know why. I don't know why they were freaking out, but I guess they thought that the generator would automatically kick in or something. Who knows? Rich people. How do they live? We don't know. So, B is in the kitchen, and she suddenly sees David slamming up against the window. He's outside, and he's like walking into the glass doors, and he's like got blood pouring from him everywhere. And she starts screaming, and everybody comes. They go out there, and they find him dead. He's really dead, and his throat has been cut. And he dies right there in front of them. They all start freaking out. None of them have any cell service. They try to get to Sophie's car, but B had left the vanity mirror. She had left the lights on, so the battery was dead. That was a smart move. So Jordan ends up finding the sword, and they all start wondering, and there's blood all over the sword that David had been playing with. So Jordan starts like wondering where Greg is, so they go up there. He's supposed to be asleep in his room. You have a bunch of scenes of that, and of course they're all carrying on this dialogue, this dialogue that's making me heave. It says comedy, horror, thriller. Well, I guess some of it is comedic, but it's certainly not. I'm not laughing at it because it's funny. I'm laughing at it because it's ridiculous. If this is Gen Z, is that who's this supposed to be? If this is the things that Gen Z really says and talks, we're lost, is all I can tell you. So, they go up to see and find that he's not there, but they do find Emma, like having a panic attack and stuff, wrapped up in the bed sheets. So they finally do find Greg. He's like meditating. Now they've worked themselves up because they find a bunch of survival gear that Greg had brought, like a normal person would during a hurricane. But they find this stuff, and they're like really suspicious of Greg. They find him doing his hippie meditating down in one of the rooms down there, and they actually like start freaking out. He gets up. He doesn't understand what the hell they're talking about because he didn't know. He's listening to music, doing this meditation. He had no idea that anything had went on, so he thought they were pretending at first. Like, what are y'all talking about? Are you fucking with me? Oh, well, David's dead. Yeah, right. So that makes them even more angry, and they kind of all start fighting, and he starts getting scared. So he's like backing up, like, I think y'all need to stay away from me. I don't know what kind of shit y'all dropped, but it's like I just sense like I'm being attacked by an angel dust posse, you know. And B ends up like smashing him in the head twice with hand weights. So he actually is dead. They have just killed Greg in their hysteria. So once that's done, they continue to argue about who killed David. If it wasn't Greg, then who did it? So they still think that someone's doing something. And in the meantime, Alice, whom, well, I started to say I wanted to punch her out so many times, but then again, that goes for each and every one of them. But Alice trips over Emma's body in the kitchen. She is really dead as well. The whole time I kept thinking, is somebody doing an April Fool's Day? Have you ever seen the movie April Fool's Day? I was like, is that what this is? Are they all just like pretending and they're all going to sit up? But, I don't know. I don't know. I was still lost at that point. Like, if they had been doing the April Fool's Day thing, it would have been believable based on the events of this movie. But they're not. They're really dead. So Emma is really dead. They get all upset and they start now accusing B, because B has, which is understandable, B had met Sophie. B, and Sophie is rich, surrounded by rich people. So B had sort of embellished her position that, her mother was rich and that she was in college and all this kind of stuff. She had been in college, but she wasn't now. So they all like freak out on B and they throw her outside. She goes and sit in Sophie's car, get something to eat, some snacks out there. B sees Jordan when she comes back up and tries to get back in the house. She sees Jordan getting a gun. And she manages to crawl through the doggy door, gets back into the house amongst them all. And she tells them that Jordan's got a gun. Jordan's like, I do not. She even like emptied her pockets and stuff. Well, she had stuck it right over there behind the pillow. So Jordan ends up giving in, and turn around and grab the gun. And now you see all of this argument between all of them that are left, really ripping each other to shreds, revealing their secrets. B has to admit that her mother is like got borderline personality disorder, that she was in college for one semester, but she's poor, and that she just works at the video store, and had even lost that because she had to take care of her mother. So yeah, everybody's little secrets come out during that thing, and Jordan ends up, I wrote, I want them all dead now. Yeah. Jordan ends up shooting Alice in the leg. That's pretty hilarious. They're fighting over, the gun. Way too much. Sophie I'd have killed Sophie too. Because that scene where Sophie is like keeps walking towards Jordan while Jordan's holding the gun. Yeah, I mean, she shot Alice and she just keeps walking towards her, and Jordan is like, please don't let me shoot you, please don't. And just backs her right up the stairs and stuff like that. I'm like, I would have shot Sophie dead. I mean, it's like, please don't keep coming towards me when I've told you to stop. And yeah, so up till that point, I didn't have a big problem with Sophie. But at that point, I'm like, okay, this girl's freaking me out. Maybe she's the killer. Because, I think that's what they were trying to keep you as, who's doing what. It's supposed to be a clue type whodunit, right? So, B ends up there at the top of the stairs and throws Jordan off the staircase down into the bottom, and Jordan just starts shooting at them. Her and Sophie go and hide in a closet where Sophie realizes that B really is afraid of her. B ends up taking off, leaving Sophie out there. And you're still like wondering who the hell all of this is, because B questions her about the deaths. Because Jordan had said something about check her phone, that I stopped by her place right before she went and picked you up and screwed, And Sophie is like, you're such a liar. And she's like, well, you look at her phone, you'll see the messages. So B is suspicious. Everybody is suspicious of everyone. Okay, B runs from her. Daylight has now come. B is outside. Sophie finds her. B has gotten a hold of Jordan's gun, so she pulls the guns on her and asks for her phone. They really start fighting over that phone, which I wonder why. I mean, maybe Jordan was right. I don't know. So they end up falling into the pool. They come up. They get out of the pool. They're rolling around in the mud. And B finally does get a hold of the phone and like wipes it off and realizes that it's not Sophie's phone. Because, David is sitting right there, laid right there dead. So when they were fighting, obviously Sophie had picked up David's phone instead of her own. So they're fighting. They do manage to get the phone. B's like, when they realize that it's not hers, that it's David's, she gets up and walks over there and opens his eyes and uses his eye thing to open his eye print to open the phone. And they watch the last video that he did where you see him drunk and on drugs and coke and everything else out there spinning around the sword, and he cuts his own fucking throat. So right as they are watching that, this guy that they had talked about the whole time, Max, who was the other friend that was supposed to be there, he comes in and is like, what are y'all doing? And B is like, we've got signal now. And the movie ends. Now, like I said, I don't regret it. And it's like, it came close though. It came close. It came close to being a regretted purchase, but not quite. I could still rewatch it again, mostly to reaffirm that I wanted them all dead and would probably take pleasure in killing them all. But I gave it like a 5.9 out of 10. There's so much that could have been done with it, especially this movie violated a lot of horror film rules, in my opinion. Pretty people in peril. That is rule number 1 for a horror movie of this type. This was the ugliest fucking cast that I have ever seen in a movie. Okay, the two dudes are ugly. David, that hair cut. His jaw, it's like he's like a gorilla. I mean, he is so ugly. Greg, I don't know what he was trying to be. He wasn't like really super ugly or anything. He was just unattractive. He just wasn't like hot or anything. Linda, I mean, yeah, is that? No, Alice. Alice, what's up with them eyebrows, baby? Pluck. Do something. I barely have any. I'm Irish. I barely have any eyebrows, but if I had eyebrows like hers, I would be like, shape, pluck, something. So, and Jordan, what's with that? What's with that? Did you see Jordan? Did you see her underarms? She had like a jungle under her underarms. Now, I know there are girls out there who are like, well, I don't have to shave my legs if I don't want to. I don't have to shave my armpits if I don't want to. No, you don't. Um, I would say the same thing about a lot of guys too. You know, I'm like, dude, you need to trim. But I don't know. It just looked awful. She just like, it was just too much. It's like, trim it or something. I guess it would have looked all right, I suppose, if that's what she wants to wear, underarm hair. But that much? I mean, it looked like someone took two black wigs off of two Bozo the Clowns and she just like stuck them up under her arm. It was just like poof. It was just disgusting. Sophie and Emma was they were all ugly. Sophie was probably the only one that was an attractive individual. That's the girl with the braids. I didn't really see her, you know. B, she looked, I don't even know what B looked like. She was just not attractive either. It was a very ugly cast. So there was no hotties. I can't see any guys thinking any of these girls were pretty, and I can't see any girls thinking any of these girls were pretty, and I can't see any gay guys thinking these two guys were cute. They're not, and I don't know. This was just a very ugly group. So there wasn't even any hotties to like be hot over. So that was a minus. Then you had the dialogue. God, is that really what today's 20-year-olds, is that really what y'all talk about and do? And oh my God, it was like awful. There was no one that you could even look up to, right? And there was no one to root for. Did you root for anybody in this movie? Please tell me in the comments. Did you have sympathy, empathy, or root for anyone in this movie? I wanted each and every one of them were too stupid to live. And that's why I like this movie. Very rarely do you have a movie where you can just like go, you know what? I'm in a hateful mood. I'm in a kind of mood to where I just want to talk ugly. I want to talk nasty to a bunch of people. Not a nasty in a good way. Nasty in a rip them to shreds. I just want to be mean. This is the movie that I will forever throw on when I'm in that mood so that I can call them names, make fun of them, and be a bully vocally. Be an asshole vocally. Without really doing it to a person that exists in real life, because I wouldn't do that in real life. But being able to sit and talk to these assholes on the screen, I think it's worth the price just to have it. So that I can sit and go, God, David, man, do something with that hair, dude. Grow a little hair, do something. You look horrific. You're just an ugly motherfucker. And so there's no one to like get the hots for. There's no one to root for. You don't want anybody to live through it. Then when you find out, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand that really don't like this movie, they're like, oh man, the ending. I think the ending was supposed to be that way. Because what do you think about the ending? You're like, well, that makes sense. It does make sense. They are that stupid. The fact that David cut his own fucking throat being an asshole with a sword is so... Of course he did. They killed each other over this hysteria. Of course they did. They're all that stupid. So to me, I would have to talk to the director and the writer. But I would be like, look, I think you made a movie, didn't you? Slamming these stereotypes. This, is that what they're called? Gen Z? You made a movie slamming Gen Z stereotypes. Because if you look at this movie that way, that this movie was made not to be real, not to have some of the real formulas of horror movies, but this movie was made by someone who absolutely hates Gen Z. I think she did. I think that this movie was made to make fun of, humiliate, and slam the way that these Gen Z people, people who are 19 to 22 or whatever, I think that this movie was made to make fun of them, to call them every stupid name in the book. And I did. And I do. So the ending, if they had had a different ending, but let me put it this way. If they had had a different ending, like the video showed one of them killing him, I don't even think I would have liked that, because I'd have been like, oh, so someone really was a murderer. No, no. It made me hate David even more, and I already did. It made me laugh at David even more than I already did. So it was totally like, oh, well, that makes sense. I wasn't disappointed at all. I'm like, oh, yeah. You know what? I see what you did there. You made a movie with the most hateable characters in the entire world, and then made them kill each other stupidly over pure stupidity. And then made the whole person who caused all this to happen be so stupid that he cut his own throat. It all works perfectly. So that's why it's a 6 out of 10. Is because I don't know. I haven't spoken to Halina and said, is that what you were doing? Because if that's what you were doing, you did it perfectly. Because this is the ugliest, stupidest, most moronic group of people that I have ever seen in my life. Please tell me that you don't like Gen Z. Because you made a movie that was nothing but you ragging on Gen Z and everything about them. From their drugs, to their hairy armpits, to their ugly hairstyles, to their toxic this, and, all the little things. I almost said something I wasn't going to say. But you know the kind of stuff that they said each other. All their little dramas and all of their little snowflake behaviors and ideas and stuff. I think this movie was made to make fun of, insult, and slam Gen Z, and you did an absolutely perfect job of doing it. I wanted every one of them dead. I'm actually very disappointed that you didn't find some way for Max to kill them, Sophie and Sophia, or Sophie, and B, when he got there. You really should have did it completely. Because, see, we can't judge Max because he wasn't there. We can assume he was like all the rest of them. But you should have had some way for Sophie and B to be killed at the end. That would have made me very happy. Because every one of them needed to go. It would just be a blessing to the earth that these people are dead. I mean, they can't breed. Because we don't want them to breed. Please don't breed. In the name of the human gene pool, don't breed. Any of these people don't breed. So, yeah. So that's Buddies, Buddies, Buddies. Like I said, I think it's funny for the reason that I just explained. I think it is an absolute insult to these people who think and talk this way. And I think that that's what it was meant for. Now, if she told me different, if she came up and said, oh no, it was written seriously, isn't it a serious horror movie? I'd be like, you don't hate Gen Z? Well, no, I was just representing them, and I like the way they think and talk. I would go, don't ever make another fucking movie because you're an idiot. However, I don't believe that. I believe that she did it to insult Gen Z, and she did. Perfectly. So that's Buddies, Buddies, Buddies. I'll be back with the next one. Love you, miss you, bye. Thank you very much. Love to hear your thoughts on this movie and why you think it was filmed the way that it was filmed and written the way it was written. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Always remember, never forget, you are a very, very special person. Especially if you're not like these. Anyone in this. If you are not like anyone in this movie, you're very special. Bye-bye.